Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Timeless. So a lot of stuff to cover in this episode. Obviously, the main point of this is stopping Flynn, because Flynn's going back to, 1955 and 1954, where it's that Rittenhouse meeting, and he's going to kill everyone. Obviously, we have, it's Lucy, Wyatt, Gia, and Rufus who go back in time, because this is the first time it's 4 people, because really I guess the lifeboat's more so than anything calibrated to handle 3 people, not 4 people. Is kind of why Rufus is like, oh, we shouldn't really do that. Before, I was actually surprised about the whole Gia thing. I don't know how Agent Christopher was able to do that, but I guess she still has some sway, her for position and everything. But just kind of interesting that she was able to get Gia out, no problems. I was thinking that was going to be a situation where she was locked up the entire time. I was like, nope, she's here, she's with Rufus and everything. Also, side note, Rufus whole bullet situation resolved. Luckily, he didn't die. He was still, obviously, we saw that at the beginning of the episode, he was still alive. And Lucy ended up getting her fiance Noah to help, which obviously he's like, yo, explain to me what's going on. She's like, I can't. Obviously, he's like, yo, you're a different woman than the woman I married. Just like you turned into a different person. It's like, no, this is who I really am. That person that you were with is not me. It's kind of sad because, you are 2 separate people. That the woman, you are technically the same woman he fell in love with, but at the same time, you really aren't, because that was a woman. Like I said, it's interesting when you think about how time works, how it's like all these lives. It's like, obviously, it's almost like she lived her entire life on autopilot, but she has the memories of her previous life, the previous timeline, so. But that's definitely going to come in, obviously, later on, when I'll bring something up later on. But I'll get to that soon enough. Just got to run through everything. Flynn brought up something interesting. It's like, yeah, some of the people I'm going to end up killing there, or one of them said people is going to be grandfathers. Like, I don't know what that means going forward for you, but, which obviously, timeline rules, like if her grandfather died, that means her father wouldn't be born, and then she'd disappear from the timeline because she wouldn't exist anymore. But he's like, which... It turns out he already has a son. His son's already born. Her grandfather, Ethan, already had her dad, Benjamin. So it does make you wonder how would the timeline of... Because it would bring up something interesting, because, like, Ethan would be there to kind of bring Benjamin into the whole Rittenhouse thing. But then again, I guess it's like Rittenhouse would obviously reach out to him nevertheless. So things would still work out, but maybe Benjamin be a different person. Because obviously it got brought up. The fact is, because Ethan brings it up, when Lucy actually meets him and everything. It turns out Ethan's gay. And it's like, especially during that time, you don't want to be outed as gay, because it's just like, it's very, not a safe time. And it's like, even he, and it's super sad, because it's like, he's looking down on, he's like, oh, I'm disgusting. I know I love my wife and our child, but it's like, I'm disgusting. And it's like, no, it's nothing to be disgusted about. Lucy and Wyatt are like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. He's even talks about getting shocked there, because that's a way of treating homosexuality, apparently. And it's sad that he has that mentality. It's not just a mentality he has, he has that mentality because of the times and everything. But, she's basically like, no, you don't have to worry about something like that, There is nothing wrong with him. Because the fact is, like, Ethan himself, from the very beginning, he was never okay with something like Rittenhouse. Obviously, it's something Benjamin brought up. It's like both him and his father both ran from it. But then it's like, it kind of trailed back to them. Rittenhouse found its way to them, and now they work for Rittenhouse and everything. But it's like, when you hear the way Ethan talks, it's like, nah, he hates Rittenhouse, because the fact is that he doesn't agree with the way they go about things. Because that was another thing too. If Rittenhouse found out he was gay, they would have killed him. So it's not like they're the perfect group that they like want to pretend that they are. It's like you have to fit a certain criteria, essentially. It's kind of interesting in a twisted, messed up sort of way. But anyway, it came down to Lucy, Wyatt, and Flint, and they were like, okay, whoa. Lucy decided to kind of step in the middle. It's like, Wyatt wanted to just take Flynn down, but it's like, no, it doesn't work. It shouldn't work like that. Her decision was to basically work together. And she said something very interesting that I really liked. It's basically like, we need to stop trying to fix the past, because all 3 of them are so desperate to fix the past. Him with his wife and child, Lucy with her sister Amy, in a sense, and then also like Wyatt trying to save his wife, it's just, Jessica, because they're going so far to the way to restore the past and get back the past that they lost, they're kind of hurting everyone else because there's consequences. Best example is what Flynn's doing. In his search to get back his wife and child, he's killing a lot of people. Yes, there are people connected to this whole Rittenhouse situation, but there are also innocent people that are casualties of his need to get close to Rittenhouse. Once again, it's justifying the means type of situation. Do they? And in this case, they don't. It's like, I understand why you're doing it, but you're going about it the wrong way. And Lucy's like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to handle this a little bit differently. Rather than trying to fix the past, we should fix the present. And I was like, what does she mean by that? And now obviously she brought her grandfather Ethan in and explained everything, showed him everything. I was like, what is she? I was like, oh, are you going to take him back to the past? Because it's like, okay, I was like, okay, what I see you doing is like, fact is, Gia's going back because of her soul situation. Well, I'll get to that in a second. So I was like, how is that going to help? Or are you going to take him back to the present? Because like, even though he's alive in the present, is it like you're going to take him back so he can convince your dad? I was like, I don't know what you're doing. The point was for Ethan to be a double agent, which kind of explains some things too. But it's like, he's supposed to be a double agent. Basically, they end up meeting up with him in the present day, and he ends up having he has a place where he stashed all this info that he's gathered on all the Rittenhouse members all across the time, so they know exactly who they are and how, essentially everything that they've ever done. Which, kind of going back, is the point I was making, is like, the fact is that explains why he was so against it, but then he came back, because like I said, Benjamin made a whole point about it. And so that's probably why he pulled Benjamin back in, because it's like, if Benjamin's not there, the whole plan kind of falls apart. It's like, yes, it's sad he has to bring his own son into this twisted world that even he himself doesn't want to be a part of, that he doesn't believe in, but at the very least, it's the way to kind of keep everything in order so that basically they can take down all these people. Because taking Benjamin out of the equation might have changed a lot of things. It might have meant a lot of the people who would eventually become part of Rittenhouse wouldn't be. It would change too much, and it's like, need to keep, I guess, the present as, it's one of those things where it's like, it's already happened in the present day. It's just because a different Lucy had already gone back in time to get Ethan to do that, and before her was another Lucy. Like, it's an endless cycle of going back to the past to change the present. So the present it's always been like that in the present. Her grandfather being a double agent, it's just, it's just like an endless cycle, like a thing of kind of a loop upon itself. So that was pretty cool. Then there was a whole Flynn situation. It's like, okay, for one, Flynn gives her the journal. He's like, okay. She's like, you never gave me the answer where you got this from. And I guess as much as oh, Lucy gave it to him. I was thinking it was going to be like a younger Lucy or something, travel back in time and ended up giving it to him. It's like, no. He talks about the fact is, no, it was, you gave it to me. She's like, oh, there's no way. He's like, you should know that you age very gracefully. So it was like an older Lucy, much. I guess now how I'm interpreting this, I'm gonna think about how I'm thinking about this. It seems like how this is all going to end is possibly what this alludes to is Lucy being trapped in the past, kind of referencing Doctor Who. This might make sense to some people. Basically, that Amy and Rory situation, basically they got trapped in another time, and basically they lived out the rest of their lives, but they didn't live it out in the present day. They lived it out in what was it, the 1800s or something like that, 1800, 1900, whatever the case may be. They lived out the rest of their life. So maybe it's something like that where Lucy goes back in time and she gets trapped in the past and has to live out the rest of her life. And then as she gets older, maybe she comes across a super young Flynn and gives it to him, or maybe it's like Flynn from a couple years ago, or maybe it's a little time after his wife and child died that Lucy gave him the book to kind of complete the full cycle of everything happening. So I figured as much that's what it was going to be, but I was halfway expecting her to be older or something like that. Not unless that was him joking, saying oh yeah, you age very gracefully. Maybe he was talking about the fact is that it is this Lucy, but at a younger point in Flynn's life that he gets the book from her. So maybe that's what he's kind of referencing. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that. Really quick, I'll bring it up. The fact is, he kind of got screwed over in this episode with that whole situation because Agent Christopher was like, yeah, I'm sorry, but I can't, basically he is a terrorist. He's done a lot of bad stuff, which Lucy was like, no, he helped us in the end, but it's it doesn't justify what he's done up till now, which Flynn is super pissed about. He's like, you've made a mistake. You don't know what you've done, which obviously, the whole season 2 situation, I'll get to it in a second. I don't really know heads or tail whether it's going to be a second season or not. I hope so, but like I said, I'll get to that later. But if it obviously Flynn's story's not done. this isn't going to be over until he gets his wife and daughter back. And I'm just very curious to see what they do with his story, like going forward, if they do. Like I said, we'll get to that in a second. The other big twist in this episode I really didn't see coming was the Mason thing. I loved it. He's helping Agent Christopher and everything. I was like, is he a double agent? It's like, please don't tell me you're just playing. No, please don't tell. It's like, no, he's dead serious, dude. He's a freaking double agent this entire time. Back when Rufus was like, yo, I need you to choose a side. He chose Rufus's side, but he pretended he was on Rittenhouse's side the entire time, because basically they showed their hand. He was like, oh, they're thinking we were playing checkers or chess. I was playing 3D chess or something like that. I was playing a whole different game. That basically the whole thing he brought up last episode about the whole NSA program, it was him getting access to that, because now he can find every Rittenhouse member. He's actually using that same program. Basically it's an NSA program. It's a very illegal program, but nevertheless. And even Agent Christopher's like, how do I know I can trust you? And then he said something I really like. He was like, basically my whole deal, it's already set in stone. I did some very bad things. I have to suffer the consequences for it. But he's like, Rufus, no, Rufus, doesn't deserve that. And it's like, I'm like happy. I'm like, yes, thank you, Mason. I was hoping, I was like, oh man, tell me you're going to have an epiphany or something. It's like, no, you've been having an epiphany. You chose the right side from the very beginning. You just been playing along. I was like, you go, Mason. I loved it. It was so good, dude. I really appreciate that, man. That was so, because I didn't see it come. I'd given up complete. Like, I was just like, well, it's this late in the season. It's too late for Mason. There's no going back. I was hoping he'd have like some late minute epiphany, but like, that makes it even better. So I do like what Agent Christopher was saying. She's like, yeah, under all that, basically that, all that under there's a beating heart. And he's just like, okay, I guess I'll take that's a compliment. Like, yeah, Mason, you're not a douchebag. All right. Now, getting really quickly back to the whole Gia situation. Obviously, her and Rufus finally, Rufus, she heard Rufus talking about the fact that he loves her. That once they get back to the present, he's going to be a little more open about how he feels towards her, which he didn't really act upon that. It took Gia kind of being like, yeah, I might have had my eyes closed, but I heard you. But there were ramifications, obviously. Like I said, the lifeboat was made in a way so it could only really support 3 people. So a 4th person in there, there'd be ramifications. At first, her eye got a little bloodshot. She passed out. She started kind of having seizures. And she kind of did it again in the hospital. Her eyes rolled back. But in that moment, outside, you see a bridge. I would assume it's the San Francisco bridge, I guess. I would assume, maybe, I don't know. We see it in ruin or decay or something, like it got destroyed, and it flashes to like it being present day or something. So something happened to Gia when she was in there. Either it was like, basically some of the how I'm going to explain it, time energy got mixed into her body. So maybe Gia can I don't know whether, because I don't know whether it was she herself can time travel now to a certain degree. I don't know. I doubt so, because in that moment, Rufus was like, but maybe it's a situation kind of basically while she's going, time kind of stands still. So maybe in that moment she flashed to the future and then she flashed back. But for the bridge to be like that, it's like something terrible went down, which is kind of something I'll get to in a second. But it's like, dude, does that mean she just sees the future and that's what that was supposed to represent? Or does she actually travel there? What does that mean? Definitely some things have happened to Gia, not the ramifications I was expecting, but I was like, oh, I thought it was going to kill her or something like that. But it's like, who knows? Maybe in the end, this might be much worse, because we don't know what kind of, obviously, when they time travel, they have the lifeboat to protect them, from being ripped apart from this whole thing. It's like, what will it do to a human body if she's legitimately time traveling? What does that mean going forward? Especially if someone like Rittenhouse gets their hands on. The whole point at the end was oh, we're gathering up all these different people from Rittenhouse. There's over 40 some arrested and stuff like that. So, and it came down. I was like, hey, I'm gonna keep up my end of the bargain. You can go back in time and get your sister back. She's like, yeah. And then there's that moment between her and Wyatt, which Wyatt kind of took her words to heart. Maybe I should kind of move, past my past and then talk about the future. Move forward with the future. Which they were about to have this sweet moment where they're about to make out and everything, and then Macy came and just completely ruined it. So I appreciated that. But then there was this final twist of the episode where Lucy comes back. She's talking to her mom. She's like, yeah, I'm explaining all this. I'm like, oh, Lucy, don't explain it to your mom. What your mom is going to do is she's going to have to her and Noah create this intervention, and now the doctor's going to carry you away, and now you're in trouble like this. It's obviously going to get carried away, talking all this crazy talk. And then her mom is like, oh, don't worry, honey. Rittenhouse will never let you do that. It's like, wait, what did you just say? And she's like, wait, what? It's like, you didn't think about it? It's like, how do you think me and your dad met? They're both from prominent families in Rittenhouse I figured I should have known. I should have known, because the whole point of Rittenhouse, for them to be, I don't know why I didn't put that together, because I literally brought it up. The fact is, like, oh, her family must be pure blood, Rittenhouse, because it's like, oh, another family must have came together with another family, but it never clicked in my head it would be specifically their families. Like, her family is Lucy's the generation of like two families within the Rittenhouse family getting together, because Benjamin was already born prior to the whole situation with Ethan and his wife. So, but it's like, I don't know whether she's necessarily the first, but it's like, definitely, like, I don't know, it seems like their family already had high status, and maybe it's even more so. Maybe it was already a thing before him, but probably it's definitely even more prominent with Lucy. And she's like, yeah, why would we go back in time? Why would they let you go back in time at a point in time when I was sick, and for some girl, Amy, that no one but you remembers? And it's like, dude, she's like, you're so important, you have such a great destiny from him. It's like, dude, that was a twist I wasn't expecting. I was like, dude, that was so good. That was so good. It's like, I knew, like, we only had a couple minutes left. Like, they don't hit us with a stinger, and they hit us with a big one, dude. That was so good. I hope on everything that this show comes back for a second season. It is so good, and especially with everything they've set up now, Flynn in jail and what that means going forward. The fact is, Mason's not a bad guy. Agent Christopher helping them out and everything, trying to get Amy back with this whole Rittenhouse situation. It's a lot bigger than they thought, because you have to also think about the fact is, Lucy hasn't really started writing her journal yet, and there's like so much more that has to be brought up. It's like she tried to go about it a better way of trying to destroy Rittenhouse, but even that way hasn't worked out. Obviously, get some people arrested and everything, but now we see that, it's beyond just because what would involve to take down Rittenhouse would involve taking down not only her dad, which I'm sure she doesn't have really any connection there, but it also means taking down her mom. And now it puts everything in perspective. It's like, even though your mom was sick and everything, like, maybe that's why Lucy was originally chosen anyway, too, was along those lines, too. It's because they wanted Lucy to change this timeline. Especially because this also means her mom's very selfish, too. Her mom's like, I'm not going to go back to a timeline where I was apparently sick for some girl that I don't know. It's like, you're the only girl that matters. Especially because Amy is a child with a different guy. Her and Benjamin having Lucy was like, oh man, she's the golden child of Rittenhouse, but it's like, Amy is no one. Like, only her mom, like, she don't even carry her mom's DNA, so she's only part pure blood of Rittenhouse in some shape or form. But now it's like, oh, Lucy's the pure blooded child of Rittenhouse. So what this means going forward, obviously, like, there's more, like I said, because remember in Lucy's journal, she referenced the fact is that she wished that Connor White would kind of move past his whole situation with his wife. So that means that's going to come up again. Like I said, we're going to dive deeper into it, find out more information, because it's got to be connected to Rittenhouse, the whole reason. Like, probably much like Flynn, I'm sure Jessica was killed by Rittenhouse too, because the whole point was to set him in a position to probably be there to be a part of this. This was all set in stone. Like, their lives were kind of decided for them before they even knew it. Like, there's all these mechanisms that were working in the background, like the point of getting Rufus to be where he is, and Gia as well. So all of it was, really Gia was more so there to kind of replace Rufus, but now it's like, what is her destiny hold? Maybe they actually had plans for Gia from the very beginning, that they knew things would end up this way, but at the same time, it seems like Gia's whole situation is an anomaly. So all I can say is a fantastic episode, and I'm super psyched. I really hope they're bringing this back for a second season, because I'd love to see what they do with it. Just what that mean go. Especially to me, the most interesting thing is the whole Gia aspect, like what happened to her, what it means, her whole situation, but also Lucy's family. It's just, there's so many different angles and so many different directions they can take it. Time travel is such, that's what's scary about time travel stuff. It's like, there's so many infinite possibilities of like, oh, this one thing is happened because of something else. Like I brought up the whole Lucy and her grandfather situation. It's like, it's it in itself being a loop. So it's like, there's so much in this show that you don't know whether it's a loop or not. It's like, oh, this is a starting point here, or at least it seems like the starting point, when in actuality it's the end point, because the starting point started 45 years ago or something like that. I know that's not making much sense, but I really don't bring up too many conversation pieces, but I would like to talk about this. Let me know in the comments down below, like, what was your favorite part? Are you super excited for a second season? Are you indifferent about a second season? What would you like to see? Definitely let me know. I want to get a whole conversation piece started. I might even take some time to kind of like afterwards, because obviously I'm recording this like right after watching an episode. That's typically how these recording sessions usually go. Usually they're anywhere between like 30 minutes to like an hour later, but this one in particular, it's been like a couple minutes since I watched the episode, at least at the beginning of the time of me starting this recording. So, maybe in the future, after I get some more time in between me and the episode, I'll probably think a little bit more. Maybe I'll make a video about like some things I'd like to see in a second season. But let me know what you'd like to see. So just get a conversation starting about this episode. I'm telling you, it was so good. Just the moments kept going up. I was like, wait, what? Yes! I wish people could be around me when I'm watching TV, because it's like, I think I only get like that because I'm by myself. I'd never do that around other people because I'd keep myself in, which is sucky. It's like, I like moments. That's why I like watching TV, just because I get to go, yeah! I have those very vocal moments because that's just how I am. I mean, it probably ruins television for other people, but I just enjoy it because I'm used to it. It's a whole thing. Nevertheless, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.